digital transformation is accelerating more rapidly than ever before. But there's so many elements to your transformation. So how do you get your applications, your people, and your tools and technologies to work seamlessly across all the use cases? Hi everyone, and welcome to the Thought Leader Chats. I'm Ronald van Loon. I'm here today with Kumar Sreekanti. He is the CTO and Head of Software at HPE. With Robert Christiansen, he's the VP Strategy and Office of the CTO, also at HPE. With Doug Cackett, he is the Distinguished Technologist for HPE as Morale. And last but not least, and again welcome, Nanda Vijaydev. He's the Distinguished Technologist, also at HPE. Welcome HPE team. They're here to help us to understand, to quickly navigate the digital transformation journeys and be adaptable, be flexible and sustainable now, but also as we move into the future. And businesses all over the world, they need to modernize their infrastructure in order to unlock the potential of their data and use automation across the organization in order to give it the agility that's necessary to thrive in the world that has been forced to digitally transform as a result of this pandemic. And it's more quickly than we ever had expected. So applications need to work no matter what. And people need the skills to adapt and to work capably. And the tools and the technologies that needs to be there to support your entire business. But everything is changing so quickly that it's difficult for businesses to keep up. One process, method, or a tool that works today that doesn't necessarily work tomorrow. And one use case that was successful today needs a new approach tomorrow. So how can business keep up with such a fast-paced environment? And how can they overcome all the challenges involved? So let's turn now to Kumar and to Robert so they can help us better understand what organizations are facing today.
Welcome everyone to HPE Discover Virtual Experience. My name is Kumar Sreekanti. I'm the CTO and Head of the Software here at HPE. This week, we are focusing on HPE software portfolio. We have lined up impressive set of my team members from HPE and industry experts and customers to share and discuss topics like containers, Kubernetes, AI/ML, machine learning, and data analytics.
It's a really interesting time because initially many of the clients that CTP engaged with about 5-6 years ago were really all in on public cloud, and they really didn't anticipate a number of the problems that they would be running into. And the assumption was that I could just move my workloads up there. And so what we know today, Kumar, is this, is that only a small number of the applications that they wanted to get any kind of transformation on were able to make the trip. And that was relatively unfortunate for a lot of the clients because they didn't really understand why there was so much heavy lifting and they weren't getting the modernization of those applications. And so today we know, as a result of that, those hundreds and hundreds of worldwide engagements for people trying to get that transformation to their applications, we know that a majority of those applications still remain untouched. They still have not received the benefits, and clients still want to have that experience. So there are blockers that have emerged from going to the all-in cloud motion, and there's fundamentally 5 of them. There is application entanglement, which are dependencies. And if you think about how an application is built, it relies on other applications strung together to give it data or calculations necessary for it to do what it needs to do. And these all act like a chain, if you would, or a ball of interconnected applications that work together to solve problems. Now, many organizations felt that if they take a piece of that and moved it to public cloud, they'd be able to automate that. Well, the problem is that it's tied with other applications that can't move. And when they can't move, the previous ones that we just talked about can't move either. Just because they are capable of moving doesn't mean that they can move. This is really interesting. So that entanglement of hardened systems is really, really a very, very durable and strong position for those applications. The other aspect is with the latency that data gravity causes for those applications. If you have reads and writes going to data stores, those need to be very fast for a user experience, and specifically when you're dealing with more and more data. Because data gravity, or what we call the actual low latency needs of many applications, you just simply can't pull a piece of SEPA application to move it to the cloud without bringing the data with it. Well, that creates all sorts of problems. And you see that in people trying to replicate data, trying to provide data stores and have an access backbone. So the result is that many of these, what I call systems of records, the systems that run the global economy today, are unable to be moved. Well, then if you start adding risk and security and compliance issues over the top of that, like what we call data sovereignty, many countries have laws that say you can't move their people's data out of the country without written permission and all sorts of things like that. And then you put the skills gap involved with people who are knowledgeable of this new model versus those that are not, that gulf that happens there. It all adds up to the inability to come up with a return on investment that is supported by the risk involved with trying to do this. And so that's really a series of blockers that have prevented many of our clients from moving the applications to a place where they can transform them, which has only been the public cloud. And so we want to change that. What we know is that when we talked to not only our clients, we started really looking out beyond our clients and beyond the areas, and we found that this was a universal problem across the board. It wasn't just within HPE's clients, it was with everybody's clients. Everybody was experiencing the same problem. So it was good to see that we were finding out what the real transformation problems were, and it was preparing for the applications in their business cases. It was the redesign, what they call refactoring of applications, and the actual people training problems. And you can see it almost breaks out into thirds of these problems that our clients were engaging with. And this comes from a very recent study that we found is very interesting and enlightening. So the real question becomes, how do we help our clients accelerate their transformation today? And that question really arrives to the point of what and where do our clients need services, and when do they need those services? And what we've discovered is this, is that for our clients to achieve the cloud experience, we have to bring that platform to them, not ask them to go to the platform. Big difference here is that the cloud services, the platform itself, the combined hardware and software and the solutions all have to be near the client's data and their applications, no matter where they may be, in a co-location facility, in a data center, at their particular edge locations, whatever their edge may be. This is really important.
The cloud is playing a major role in modernizing application development and helping businesses to get the services they require when and where they need it. And machine learning also has a critical role to play in acceleration of the digital transformation journeys. So what kind of challenges are businesses facing when it comes to machine learning and data science? And how are businesses able to promote business continuity moving into the future? So now let's talk to Doug and to Nanda to share their unique insights.
I'm Doug Cackett, and I'm here with my colleague Nanda, our distinguished data scientists, to really double click on that digital transformation journey a little, but this time looking at in more detail at the data part of that and how data science is playing a part with delivering value from that data. So we've understood already how the pandemic has really accelerated that digital transformation journey for many of our customers. And as a byproduct of that, of course, there's been this massive increase in the amount of data and the demand for data science to make sense of that data and turn it into something more valuable for business, actionable insights. As a practicing data scientist, Nanda, I'm just wondering, is that something you're seeing as well, that acceleration?
Absolutely. Even before the pandemic, the customers I talked to, of course, they all knew the critical nature of how data science was central to a lot of their transformation journey that they will be going through, and experimenting with different technologies in a sandbox or in a pilot capacity has been happening in different teams within those companies. I think just this, COVID situation has accelerated the need for them to go at it in a much faster capacity. And also, they want to make sure that there is continuity of business and they have the necessary means to go through with the change.
Yeah, really interesting. So what do you see as the main challenges then for those customers that are trying to accelerate that journey?
Yeah, like I said, the pilot, doing experiments in a pilot capacity or a sandbox that was happening, pilot to production is the main challenge, right? Especially when you're talking about a variety of models going from building those to production has a number of different components that they have to be looking at. Especially with my journey as a data scientist working at companies such as healthcare and also financial systems, there are a number of regulatory concerns now. And, in particular, for all those people to make sure they fit the process of experimentation to operationalization and make sure that the value of the model is realized in time, that's the key. And, this is what is making companies, accelerate the digital first strategies and also work on accelerating machine learning life cycles.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about those challenges? I know that people often talk about that operationalization step, that final mile, as being the big problem. So why is that step so big for a lot of the customers that we have, and what can they do about making it easier for them to get up, if you like?
Yeah, if you really look at what that means, right, at a high level, the model or the machine learning process or predictive analytics in a way has always been in practice. So what has changed now and what is a successful deployment is really being able to deploy that model where end users or downstream consumers can get value out of it. The business transformation or the purpose or the use case for which you were building the model is actually realized in production in a capacity that makes sense, or where it is actually truly bringing the value to the company. So to that extent, there is a full life cycle where users have to run multiple experiments, track them, and promote the right model, which gets deployed at the right time. And also doing this is challenging now because the entire data landscape has changed significantly with the digital first approach, where your volume of data is much more, variability, variety. There's a number of things that are different now to complete the life cycle. And to that, the landscape of the compute has changed. And to accommodate for the landscape of this compute, the tools and technologies are different. And this brings about, the lack of talent generally, whether you're retooling the same people or you are bringing new folks into your organization and having a consistent infrastructure or a capability provided to them to provide these outcomes. So there are challenges in every step of the way in this life cycle to productionalize models.
So it's really because of these challenges then that companies are struggling with that last mile problem and operationalizing models. I know we've got some numbers on the screen here that point to just what the size of that problem, I guess. But I've seen some other really interesting ones from another analyst recently, and they suggested that 86% of companies don't have a repeatable and robust process when it comes to operationalizing models. That seems really high. Would you agree with that, Nanda? Is that what you see as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we talked about, the concept of operationalization has to be beneficial for the use case that the company was trying to do, right? So you have to be able to deploy and make sure that the results of that model deployment is showing you the business benefits. So to that extent, those numbers don't surprise me at all, because these companies have to create a repeatable process from start to end. Whatever they have is often too slow, if at all they have anything, and it's too brittle. A lot of things break in the process. And even if they perfect this entire end-to-end process for one set of use cases or for one model type, making sure that it's repeatable for other use cases or adaptability is extremely difficult given the nature of how companies have built it. And this is really where they need to adopt to a more industrialized approach. And that's the journey we are helping our customers with.
That's a really interesting idea. Actually, we've seen a really good example of flexible production line recently, funny enough, in the UK as a result of the pandemic. Believe it or not, the McLaren production line, so they're normally used to creating supercars, of course, for the rich and famous, adapted their production line to produce respirators for hospitals, which is the most amazing level of flexibility. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about? I know it's extreme, but is that what we're talking about here, but for data and for data science instead?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, maybe not that extreme for everyone, but absolutely. That's exactly the artisan approach. Or sandboxes and small pilot projects are, first of all, slow. They're very expensive, and it only allows for a limited range of models. But by industrializing the process, you're really taking away any inefficiencies in the process. At least the attempt is to make sure that if one team figures it out, or if one set of people with a certain capabilities are able to produce parts of this life cycle, how do you actually reuse consistently across different teams, different use cases, right? And the flexibility to make sure that you support not only limited set of tools, but the landscape is so huge that you could bring in any tool at any time and support any model type. So this is really making it more adaptable for new use cases and ongoing use cases, and deliver that much needed repeatability, right? And especially in data science, you have to go back and redo the same model. So and also do different models in a consistent manner. So providing that repeatability and governance is very important. And that's really what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, that coverage is really so important. I guess most of the customers that I've seen and worked with, we only cover a very small pocket of their business, rather than being across their business. And that's, I think, where everyone's trying to get to with that digital transformation. So Absolutely. How can we connect that back to the story we started with, Nanda, and how we're helping customers in their journey in data science to deliver the digital transformation that they need to?
Yeah, we are definitely getting a lot of validation for, what we are trying to do or what is happening in the industry. And especially our conversations with our customers also gives us that level of clarity of where they are going, to make sure this whole machine learning process is successful and operationalization is successful. So our philosophy or the methodology that we use is really based on the industry best practice, right? This is where the industry is headed. And some of those features are, what you hear very often about, which is containerization or the DevOps type of approach for machine learning to make sure there is consistency in the process. And specifically in the machine learning itself, being able to track experiments, capturing a rich set of metadata, because when you talk about models, there is a lot of things about the model itself that you can capture throughout the life cycle to make sure it is successful. It is a journey. There are lots of different variabilities in what a model is. So being able to capture that and providing a scalable platform, really a scalable environment for users to deploy these models with security in various form factors at various locations. And, it is an extensible approach. It has to be an extensible approach where you can accommodate for the variabilities we've always been talking about, without the end user, whether it's a data scientist or the person deploying, without them having to worry about the details. That's really the best practice everybody's trying to get to, and that we have an overwhelming validation for that.
So in this segment, we started off by talking about the important role of data science in connecting data to the digital transformation initiatives that are going on in our customers. I wonder, Nanda, just for the last few seconds that we have here, can you say any final few words about, bits of advice really about how we can help customers over their growing pains, customers that are looking to adopt a more industrialized approach, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, based on what we're seeing and what works, right? Any industrialization or any process, when you try to automate it, the three things to me are the most important. One is, what is the input? What are all the different factors you feed into the process? And second is, what is the process itself, right? And what are the steps you're taking to make sure that you go through the process? And third is the ability to optimize and adapt to the variability that comes along with the process. So in machine learning operationalization, it is no different, right? So if you look at the landscape, the tools are advancing rapidly. So the landscape is changing. How do you make sure that you do build an industrialized process to adopt to these changes? And you will have to tackle this over time. So it's most likely be the case that the range of tools will be needed is different for the next use case than it is for this use case. And you also have, I've been working with a manufacturing company where they have a distributed data center, given manufacturing has a distributed nature to it. So some of their requirement to build the model is at the core data center, and then you have models have to be deployed at many different edge locations. The scoring is happening at different locations, whether it's cloud or on-prem or edge. So the need for these things to actually be deployed in many geographically distributed locations is causing them to actually think very hard about how efficient their pipeline has to be from core to edge to cloud. So in a complicated system like this, your need for governance and making sure you have strict controls, auditability, lineage tracking, all of this bottom up from a governance point of view and top down from business value point of view. You have to make sure that you accommodate for that.
Digital transformation requires moving applications and data along with it, so that they are functional and they can be put to their full use. When moving applications and data, there are also additional complications involved, like security, like governance and compliance. And not to mention the skills and the culture that's required to make everything come together and work properly. That's incredibly complex. And I think it's needless to say, businesses need services when and where they are. And the cloud is helping them to achieve this goal. So ultimately accelerating their digital transformation journey. But machine learning and data science is still going to be the backbone for the digital transformation, whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow. And because of this pandemic, businesses have to accelerate at unprecedented speed. And with this acceleration, there's an increase in data and corresponding increase in demand for data scientists, and that makes sense of the data. But machine learning and data science has challenges of their own, because the entire data landscape has changed as well and continues to change every day, every month, every quarter. So tools are changing, but also the talent and the skills must change too. And a business infrastructure needs to be consistent. And this means that it must take an industrialized approach that is as flexible as it is adaptable in order to keep up with this fast-paced, ever-changing environment. And today, every use case is different. And tomorrow, the successful approaches that you used on those use cases, they are going to change. So let's wrap up. Consistent and rapid change are becoming the new constant for businesses. So learn how to embrace accelerated digital transformation head-on with the right processes and the right technologies that will help you today, but also tomorrow. I'm Ronald van Loon, and this is The Intelligent World.